G'day, and this is just a preface to the preface. It's since found out that there were a couple of extra photos, and now there's even just a snippet of the Muppet attacking him coming up, and it ends just as it takes his phone. So in order of preference, what I've done is I've put all these photos in order so you can see him coming across the road from the butcher in sort of stop motion, getting to his footpath, noticing John, who's sitting in his car facing the other direction, looking back at him, taking a few photos, and then as John sees him coming across the road, obviously he switched over to his camera and just managed to get his camera going to see him come over and goes, "Who are you?" sort of thing. And as he grabs the phone, one can only presume without evidence, although there is CCTV footage out there. Let's see if we can get that too. There were also other witnesses, so yeah, the plot thickens, but it certainly doesn't look like someone who's avoiding someone trying to run them over with their car, if that's what someone wants to allege. And yeah, so please enjoy. John was outside his house taking photos of himself and his kids. Oh my god, in fact I can just about hear the violin playing.
What's your name?
I don't know about you, but can you point out where the kids are in these photos? I don't see any, but you know, I am half blind, who knows?
What's your name?
You know, rumour has it that in the deep dark sort of areas of Remuera at night time, if you listen very, very closely, you can hear cries of a vagina coming from that location. Perhaps, you know, Kenyon's upset. Who knows? The Deval founder said that a photographer was trying to take pictures of him and his family.
What's your name? What's your name? What's your name?
Okay guys, just as a preface before I start this video, so you guys can all see what's happened, the photos that John took, that Kencon Clarke tends to like claim that John was outside his house taking photos of himself and his kids. Oh my god, in fact I can just about hear the violin playing, but this is the photos that he actually took, irrespective of the fact that he stole John's phone, then tried to destroy the evidence on the phone by sinking it in water, allegedly. Irrespective of all of that, what John did the very first moment he got his phone back was he sent those photos off to a third party, our mate Mark Spring, who's now currently getting insulted left, right and centre. And I'd like to point out, people only insult the messenger or do ad hominem attacks when they can't argue the facts involved. These photos, irrespective of what Stuff and NZ Herald want to report, clearly show the photos that John took that day. Here's the Muppet walking across the street, clenched fists, with his steak that he apparently picked up from the butcher. And remember, he claimed John took photos of him and his kids. I don't know about you, but can you point out where the kids are in these photos? I don't see any, but you know, I am half blind, who knows? You know, perhaps I'm wrong. And these vile little defenders of the most hated man in fucking Auckland like to then start slagging off Mark Spring and giving him shit, going on about CCTV footage that will show the truth of the matter. Well, of course it would. If they want to supply that CCTV footage, that will show Kenyon attacking John, stealing his property, and running away like a little scared baby into his home, where one can only speculate or allege that that's where he damaged the phone. This was before all the armed offender squads and everything else. I'll leave you with the recording and videos that I made yesterday while going to see if my rights to take photography in public and videography in public were upheld. Strangely enough, when a guy's standing there with at least 4 or 5 cameras on him, nobody came out to have a go at me. Some young fella walked out. I didn't even know that happened until I was reviewing the footage. So, hope he likes his cameo. Anyway guys, I'll leave you to it. Bye now. G'day everyone. Right, well, I'm here today outside Remuera Road, outside the man named Kenyon Clarke's address. See, I happen to know the gentleman that was attacked by him, had his property stolen and assaulted by him, even though the police and the mainstream media might turn around and say no charges were laid. That doesn't excuse him for the way that he behaved in the first place. So I'm just going to read out what happened here. This is from stuff.co.nz. Kenyon Clarke was seen with the police on Monday afternoon after an incident outside his Remuera home. The Deval founder said that a photographer was trying to take pictures of him and his family, which is false. Clarke, well, allegedly false. Clarke was taken into custody but later released without charge. The founder of the investment group, Deval, was seen with police on Monday afternoon after the alleged altercation with the photographer. Kenyon Clarke confirmed to Business Desk he was detained outside his Remuera house around 4 p.m. An image shared on social media appeared to show Clarke being led away by police. Clarke told Business Desk the incident involved a photographer who he claimed was trying to photograph him and his family. My family has been stalked by low-life mouth breathers. So that's what he considers the average Joe Blog, I would say. So if someone is outside my house, kind of like me right now, I'm going to give them a pretty direct response. Well, a direct response does not mean assaulting people. It does not mean stealing someone's property, i.e. John's phone. And it doesn't mean then claim to the police that you didn't steal it, only to have the police
return John's phone back to him. So how did the police get it? Could it be that you did take it, then released it to the police, and then it was returned back to John? Could it be that you dunked it in some water? Because as soon as John tried to hook it up to a power source, it's water damage. And John's currently getting that forensically assessed and a report done. Now, the police might turn around and say they're not going to take any further action. Unfortunately, he picked the wrong person to take on, and there will be further action to the points of a private civil or criminal case being laid against him. Talking to Instagram, Clarke said the incident began when he was at the butcher's picking up a steak for dinner. As you can see just across the road there's the butcher's, so apparently that's one of his friends. Now, I have spoken to John, and I've got almost a 10-minute description of the events that happened that day. I'll talk to John and see if he wants me to release that or make another statement. We'll see. Walking out of the butcher's, I heard this yelling and screaming, and I turned around. There's this guy who seems to be really agitated, and it's wild, he said. I walked over to him and I realised he's screaming abuse at me. Clarke said the individual allegedly drove at him. So he quickly got back home. Kenyon and Charlotte Clarke, owners of the Deval property company supplied, Clarke said he saw the car outside his house and went to take a photo of the number plate. He then heard yelling by the police and armed Offenders Squad members. There must have been about 15 cops, a police helicopter, dogs, the armed offenders. I had an AR-15 and taser pointed at me, and I walked up the street at the request of the cops. Clarke said he was then taken into the car with handcuffs and explained the situation to them. He says he was then let go. Well, no, he was later released without charge. He wasn't let go. In a statement, police told staff that they responded to a disorder incident involving two parties on Victoria Ave. See, John actually borrowed a witness that also saw what happened, and he borrowed their phone to call the police because obviously his phone had been stolen from him, let alone the willful damage and assault. The controversial property development group entered receivership after an early morning raid on August the 2nd at a mansion Clarke shares with his wife Charlotte. That would be the mansion behind me. Almost $5,000 rent. Established in 2013, Deval had built a number of large-scale residential properties across Auckland. According to PwC, the $237.4 million owned by Deval is made up of $170.7 million to secured creditors, $41.2 million to investors, $18 million to unsecured creditors, and $7.5 million to preferential creditors. So that's pretty much all Stuff had to say. Now, that was the initial report. Shortly afterwards, Stuff on the 19th of February, yesterday, released a follow-up, calling it The Developer versus the Used Car Salesman. Fresh details of Kenyon Clarke fracas emerges. Kenyon Clarke was detained outside his Remuera home, but later released without charge. Soon after, this picture was uploaded to Reddit, and they show you the picture. Auckland's second-hand car salesman John Murphy has been revealed as the man involved in an incident with Deval founder Kenyon Clarke. A blame game has erupted between the pair, with one accusing the other of being in the wrong. A picture of Clarke being detained by police over the incident surfaced on Reddit. He was later released without charge. Not let out of the car and released, later released. He was taken away. Clarke was detained and later released without charge on Monday evening after an incident with a photographer. Soon after the incident, an image of the controversial property developer being marched away in handcuffs by police outside his home surfaced on social media. Clarke later took the social media himself, saying the fracas started when he walked out of his local butcher to see someone filming him. On Wednesday, Central Car Company Limited Director John Murphy confirmed to Stuff he was the man filming Clarke. Well, he wasn't filming, he was simply photographing him. And I'd like to point out, under Section 14 of the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act 1990, everyone has the freedom and right to seek, receive and impart information and opinions of any kind in any form. Please. Sorry about that. With that right in mind, you only have Section 5 of New Zealand BORA, which states any limitations to those rights must be demonstrably justified. In other words, everybody has the right to film anyone in public, and certain people that have delusions of privacy might attack you if they don't know better.
I'm a very difficult human being to be around.
Auckland car salesman John Murphy was the photographer at the centre of the fracas with Deval founder Clarke. "It's my right to video and take pictures of somebody," he said. And John's 100% correct on that one. No one has the right to stop you. If you can see it, you can record it, and there is no reasonable expectation of privacy in a public place. I.e. PINAC, photography is not a crime. Murphy called Clarke a scumbag and bullshitter and claimed Clarke attacked him and stole his phone. He said he would be releasing a statement later on Wednesday. The car salesman ended the phone call with stuff and hung up when called the second time. Clarke, who posted the photo of Murphy on his Instagram profile on Tuesday night, dismissed Murphy's allegations as a joke. In an earlier social media post, Clarke said the incident started outside his local butcher, which is across the road from his house. We'll say that's accurate. "Walking outside of the butcher's, I heard this yelling and screaming and I turned around. There's this guy who seems to be really agitated and it's wild," he said. "I walked over to him and realised he's screaming abuse at me." I'd like to point out he didn't walk. He's 30-40 metres away, and John did not try and run him over. Clarke said the individual allegedly tried to run me over. Now that's a blatant lie, and quite frankly, they can throw the word allegedly in there all they like, but they want to watch what they say, especially considering John has won in a defamation case just earlier this year in regards to another lies said about him in public media or on the public sphere. "I jumped around the back of his car, jumped out of the way, and I walked into my house," Clarke said. Stuff via text message on Wednesday morning put to Murphy Clarke's allegations that he tried to run him over, but Murphy had not responded at the time of the publication. Something to back that up might have been if John was also detained and arrested and put into custody. That didn't happen. Why? Because John was the victim. There must have been about 15 cops, a police helicopter, the armed defenders, and it had an AR-15 and tasers pointed at me as I walked up the street at the request of the cops, Clarke said. In a statement, the police spokeswoman told Stuff police responded to a disorder incident on Monday afternoon involving two parties on Victoria Avenue. I'd like to point out John was in Victoria Avenue because he used to live around this area, and his local hairdressers was there as well, and he was just coming here to get a haircut. When he realised who he saw, he took a photo. There were no injuries as a result of inquiries, no charges have been laid. Okay, so willful damage because the phone was stolen from him. You could throw theft or burglary in there as well. Definitely assault because John tells me he smacked him in the side of the head, even though clearly the police weren't interested. Could be because the police are after this guy for a shitload heavier things than that, so we'll see. Murphy is also a director of Joden Finance, which trades as Cornwall Motors Company. Last month he was awarded $20,000 in damages after winning a defamation suit against a woman who claimed he had stolen a car. He also owns Powis Motor Group Limited. Powis Motors was the subject of multiple motor vehicle dispute tribunals complaints between 2011 and 2012. You get that when you sell cars, and as they tell you slightly later on in this article, only one was upheld, which means he won the others. They were all unfounded. Clarke is the founder of the Deval Property Development Group, which entered statutory management in August 2024. It had early entered receivership after an early morning raid on August the 2nd at a mansion Clarke shares with his wife Charlotte. Kenyon and Charlotte Clarke's Remuera mansion was raided when Deval entered receivership last year. This development group is now under statutory management. Statutory managers, PwC, estimate that the developer owes $237.5 million, made up of $170 million owed to secure creditors, $41.2 to investors, $18.4 to unsecured creditors, and $7.5 million to preferential creditors as of August 31st, 2024. Investors have previously spoken of their regret over investing with Deval. However, a group of minority shareholders has taken legal action against the Financial Markets Authority over the development company being put into statutory management. Last month, Clarke took to social media to hint at his return to the industry 5 months after his Deval property group entered statutory management. In a social media post shared in January, Kenyon Clarke wrote he had a great week getting back into the property, adding, "New brand coming soon." And of course, change the company name. Now, if you want to know a different opinion, I would suggest that you go to markspring.com, that's M-A-R-C spring.com, where he has a blog called Whale Oil, and this is what he's put about Kenyon. What a moron. Let's just think about his nonsensical diatribe on the gram last weekend. Now, due to the dust has settled, he's in breach of High Court orders for not returning assets as ordered. We will preface this along by saying, if the New Zealand government, judges and lawyers all have it so wrong, then please compensate the Clarkes immediately. Back to reality, it is impossible, totally inconceivable, that so many people in law, in government and in regulation could be so wrong. We've heard from Kenyon Clarke of his coming biblical response, more like driblical. If, as Kenyon claims, that his business has been taken because it's the Matrix and or he's so rich, then that would be one of the worst chilling effects in business history today. No lawyer is offering up pro bono services to save the New Zealand business community from a government now taking people's businesses because they are so rich. Where are the King's Counsel who would reveal in such a case that would pay so well thanks to the government, let alone the status in history? The con of Kencon is gone. Alright, and that's what Mark's written. Mark's a very top bloke. He's also had some success in court as well in the last year or so. So, after speaking to John, he tells me that basically he allegedly was here getting the haircut. He noticed the guy coming out being loud as he exited the butcher shop. John realised who it was, so he took a photo of him while he was sitting in his parked car. The guy then, 30-40 metres away, ran up to him, smacked him in the side of his head, and took his phone. He was away from the property. John then drove up to his property. At no point did he try and run him over, allegedly, and then asked him to return his phone. John then was able to see some witnesses that had also seen the incident, borrow a witness's phone and called the police. The police came along and said that he hadn't stolen his phone, which is interesting because I don't think the police were there to witness what happened at the time, but they said he didn't steal his phone, and yet for some miraculous reason about an hour after the incident they showed up at John's car yard and gave him his phone back. So did they find it on the side of the road, or did someone claiming that he didn't steal it actually steal it and then return it to just get the charges dropped? See, normally in these cases the police won't actually pursue it. They won't lay charges. They'll just, let bygones be bygones and that be the end of it. But unfortunately, John is a very, well, not really unfortunately, fortunately, John is a very litigious person, and he has no problems filing criminal and civil prosecutions, private prosecutions, against people that do him wrong. Last August, on the 8th of August, he charged the guy, or the husband of the lady that was charged $20,000 in the defamation case, with assault and trespass, but over technicalities, and I was there the entire time, dealt with the entire case, so I can say firsthand, he got off on technicalities. However, they clearly lost. The lady saying that he stole her car. Her partner actually brought it to John's yard and sold it. She then made false reports to the police saying that John had stolen it from her driveway, which was all absolute lies. So, there will be more to report on this. I will talk to John and see if he wants to make a statement on the record to release it, but it just goes to show someone who owes close on $500 million can still get let off, act like a complete moron in public, assault people, steal their property, and the police do nothing about it apart from show up and make a big force and effect. The average Joe Bloggs wouldn't see AR-15s and tasers pointed at him. They would just get talked to by the police, but probably given the status and what's currently before the courts with this fella, they showed up in force. Regardless, John was never charged with anything. He was never questioned much by the police. He knows better than to talk to them in the first place. but when he got his phone returned to him, he managed to recover the photos he had taken, sent them to a third party, and hopefully I can have them to show you in the near future. And then when he plugged in his phone to charge it, came up with, you know, moisture, water issue, and then the whole thing shit itself. So John does all of his work from his phone. This has cost him quite a lot of money in lost earnings because he's not had his phone. He's using a loan one at the moment, and he's still trying to get all his contacts and everything recovered. As anyone would know, when you lose your phone, you lose half your life, because that's what's on them. So I'll keep you posted. Hopefully that's the end of it, and I'll catch you again later on. See you guys. I'll take a few photos while I'm here too, eh? Bye. And there's the driveway that the police were walking into. And here is the butcher, Victoria Ave butcher, that he was visiting. Okay, so as you can see, there's the butcher. Across the road is Kenyon's house. And John was parked quite a way away. He did not try and run over anyone. This guy assaulted him, stole his phone. The police returned it later, so if he didn't steal it, how did the police become in possession of it? Because I'm pretty sure John didn't give it to them. He refused to hand it back, and that was the end of it. So again, I will keep you updated and let you all know how we get on in the future. And of course, I will keep you posted on the legal proceedings that will definitely be following. Alright, we'll take you from there, guys. I hope you all have a fantastic day. It is the 20th of February 2025, and we'll take it from there. Okay? Hiya, how are ya?
Good, thanks.
Awesome.
G'day guys, just some final thoughts in regards to this Muppet. there's quite a few posts on Instagram from what I briefly looked at yesterday. Some are knocking John, saying, don't you have something to do? What was he doing there? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I think we've answered that. He was there to get a haircut. And there's even a clip there where he's posted of John's, I might point out, ex-police vehicle. Not that John was ex-police, but he loves buying their old cars, and he has dogs, so he bought an ex-dog vehicle, which is the one that Kenyon apparently took photographs of that there in his number plate. So one would think, if you're worried about someone's going to run you over, why would you be standing right next to it, you know, taking a photograph of a vehicle if you're afraid for your life that someone's going to run you over? A bit disappointing, but not unexpected from the police to do absolutely sweet FA. But I will say that the police said to John that, well, if you weren't out taking photos, that wouldn't have happened. Well, that's like saying, you know, if you weren't walking along the street, then that guy wouldn't have come up and assaulted you. If you weren't doing illegal activity, then, you know, that guy wouldn't have assaulted you. I mean, it boggles the mind, especially when there's even this clip on Instagram showing a snapshot from the New Zealand Police website about photography in public, saying it's perfectly allowed to. The only expectation of privacy in a public place is a changing room or a public toilet. Okay? There is no other expectation of privacy in public. Delusional people such as Kencon might, you know, grant that sometimes, or perhaps it's only the favourable media take that he likes. All day yesterday I popped around and saw John after shooting round to the place of the incident, and John has been getting no end of people coming up to him, congratulating him. This guy is, you know, Kencon is the most hated fucking person in Auckland and probably New Zealand. I mean, not many people get to rip off, you know, to the tune of $250 or $500 million from unsuspecting people, you know. And yeah, I'd never heard of the twit, you know, before yesterday or the day before when John rang me up, because as soon as John got his phone back on board, I was the first person he called to just tell me what had happened. You know, I don't mind being a good sounding board for John. He will always have my support. So yeah, as far as the mentality between the police saying, well, if you weren't doing this, then stop trying to justify criminal activity, New Zealand Police. How about you do your job? Or in this case, it looks like John's just going to do your job for them. And he'll seek his own, because he has the means and the abilities and good supporting people to see that justice is done, even if the New Zealand Police don't want to have a part in it. Like I say, they've probably got their eye set on a much larger prizes. I don't know, but if I'm walking along the street or I'm taking a photo in public and some guy wants to come up, give me grief, smack me in the head, steal my fucking shit, dunk it in some water, and then lie to the police, oh no, I never did this, then how did you end up in possession of someone's property to give it to the police to return to that other person? You know, it boggles the mind. It's completely illogical, and quite frankly, I hope that John nails this bastard to the wall. Now, that's just my personal opinion. Again, I've not spoken to him, but what I did notice is that on one of the articles from one of the lamestream or, you know, dinosaur media that's out there now still posing to give you truth and accuracy, and I would point out, it's really lovely for them to straight away try and discredit John about something he did in 2011 to 2012 motor vehicle dealer tribunal things. You know, what point does that have to do with the fact that some idiot assaulted him in public for doing exactly what they've done? They've been out there taking photos. You know, did the cops go up to the media that were reporting on the story? The media that took photos of the police raid on the 2nd of August last year. Did the police go up to the media and say, watch out, someone doesn't steal your shit because you shouldn't be doing a perfectly legal activity in public? No. It's when the narrative suits, it's okay. But to straight out go and attack John and try and discredit him or knock his credibility by bringing up past court hearings, which in those cases, 75% of the cases he won. I mean, why bring that up other than to try and post shade on the person doing the legal activity? You know, it boggles the mind. Like I say, I am not going to leave this be. John is quite happy for me to let you guys all know what's going on. This is not scripted, hence the pauses and the way I'm thinking. And yeah, we'll see how we get on. I will be following this closely. I'm pretty damn sure John's going to have me in there to give him some support when it does come to court proceedings. So I always love going to court. Where else do you get a great game apart from on a court, you know? So, you know, the main thing with the judicial system is it's so bent out of shape and corrupt these days, then of course you'd expect this type of diatribe and crap that goes on with them. You know, even challenging something like a speeding ticket. There was the occasional ones, like for instance when I'll win, but 90% of the time, like look at Liz Gunn for instance. It's hands down, she was attacked by security at that Auckland airport, and yet she had to go right through the appeals process, because as we know, the district court is solely there as a revenue collecting, it's a money machine. There's always money transferring in hands in a district court. It's only once they fuck up and people with the wherewithal decide to go through it and do appeals and end up in high courts that you actually will get justice. That's if they do their job properly. But I mean, I don't have fuck all faith whatsoever in the judicial system in New Zealand. That's why I have the channel Injustice We Trust, because it's all injustice. You know, the only justice you get in New Zealand is the justice you make yourself. And I will say that until the day I die. Anyway guys, thanks very much. Appreciate your time, care and attention watching. I am going to also release this other clip that I've found of exactly how Deval Group was operating and this disgusting practices that caused so many people massive losses. So, but that's coming next. Alright guys, keep informed. Take care. Bye now.